Welcome everybody to meeting 62 of the Standing Industry on Industry, Science and Technology. Today we are continuing our review of the main estimates 27-2018. Just a couple of quick notes. We do have a very tight timetable. So first round, we've agreed that we're going to drop our time from 7 minutes to 5 minutes. And I will be holding everybody to that time. So keep your preambles short, and we'll go from there. So today we have with us the Honourable Bardish Chagger, PCMP, Minister of Small Business and Tourism, along with Mr. Nubley, Deputy Minister, and Kelly Gillis, Associate Deputy Minister. We're going to get right into it. Minister, you have up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am pleased to join you today in my role of Minister of Small Business and Tourism. It's work to support Canadian entrepreneurs and SMEs, our tourism industry, and the middle class. Le budget de 2017 marque le prochain volet.
Budget 2017 marks the next step in our plan to support Canada's middle class and those working hard to join it. Through this budget, we are taking ambitious action to support sustainable growth, build prosperous companies, and prepare Canadians for the workforce of tomorrow.
It has been a priority for our government since day one, and it features prominently in Budget 2017. We understand that Canada must innovate in order to compete and grow in the global economy. Small and medium-sized businesses, or SMEs, are often the drivers of this innovation. Through Budget 2017, we are doing more to support this innovation, in part by making important investments and also by improving our processes to make it easier and simpler for SMEs to work with government. At the heart of this plan is the creation of Innovation Canada, a one-stop point of contact for Canada's innovators and entrepreneurs. It will be the organization that leads on Canada's economic growth strategies, and it will begin by reviewing the government's business innovation programs. Les PME sont essentielles pour faire avancer l'innovation.
SMEs are critical to driving and shaping innovation. They make up more than 99% of Canadian companies, employ approximately 10.5 million Canadians, and represent about 40% of our GDP.
Elles sont à l'origine.
And in many cases, they are the sources of new game-changing innovations.
Do a better job of supporting these businesses as their first customer. To address that, we are launching the Innovative Solutions Canada Procurement Initiative. Under this program, the government will focus its purchasing on innovative made-in-Canada products and services that improve how we deliver services to Canadians while also helping to find cost savings. In addition to these actions, Budget 2017 makes important investments that will help SMEs bring their products to market, scale up, create jobs, and export to the world. For example, we will invest up to $400 million to create a new venture capital catalyst initiative to be administered by the Business Development Bank of Canada, or better known as the BDC.
This initiative will provide more late-stage venture capital to Canadian firms looking to grow and expand. And to do our part in the global fight against climate change, we are investing $1.4 billion to support clean technology firms.
And Canada's other regional development agencies will take on new importance in light of the focus on innovation. Every region of the country will have a distinct innovation and skills plan that reflects regional economic realities. These plans will showcase the benefits of each region to investors and provide Canadians across the country with opportunities to develop their skills. Supporting SMEs will be a key part of these plans. I just returned from the prairies where I saw firsthand the great innovative work being done by local SMEs. The same is happening right across the country, and I will be working closely with Minister Baines to ensure that the regional development agencies continue to keep SMEs at the core of their work. Pour pouvoir réellement saisir les nouvelles
To truly seize new opportunities to innovate and grow, SMEs must hire the right people. Budget 2017 proposes $2.7 billion to help unemployed and underemployed Canadians train for better jobs.
The government is especially committed to the success of Canada's young people. We are providing more than $395 million for additional youth employment and skills development opportunities, and $50 million for coding and digital skills education to help young Canadians prepare for technology jobs. And we will invest $14 million over 2 years in Futurepreneur Canada, which is doing amazing work providing young business owners with mentors, skills development, learning resources, and startup financing. Mr. Chair, women entrepreneurs and women business owners in Canada are underrepresented, a problem we share with the U.S. This is a personal priority for me. We know that the number of Canadian women wanting to start a business is among the highest in the world, and yet just 16% of businesses are owned or controlled by women. As the committee will remember, to help address this, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and President Trump announced the Canada-United States Council for Advancement of Women Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders. This important initiative will identify actions to remove barriers to women serving in senior leadership positions and advise on boosting competitiveness for women entrepreneurs. Beyond this, we are also committed to helping women entrepreneurs and innovators succeed. This includes encouraging procurement for companies led by women and other underrepresented groups. La BDC fait un travail extraordinaire en ce sens et a pris.
And BDC is doing great work. It has taken steps to become a world-leading financial institution for women entrepreneurs. This includes creating a new $40 million fund for women-led technology firms and investing $10 million to support regional initiatives for women founders.
Exciting times for Canada's tourism sector as well. Last year, we welcomed close to 20 million visitors, over 11% more international tourists than in 2015. La croissance de ce secteur doit se poursuivre.
Growing this sector is important. It accounts for 2% of GDP, and it employs more than 1.7 million Canadians, often in good middle-class jobs. Moreover, Canada has much to offer this year as we celebrate our 150th anniversary. We expect to set a new record this year.
For successes. Last week at Rendezvous Canada, I announced a new tourism vision. This ambitious undertaking aims to grow and strengthen Canada's tourism industry while enhancing our country's brand. We have laid out 20 items that address some of the biggest challenges that require action. These include lifting the visa requirement for Mexican travelers, investing to make Canada a destination of choice for LGBTQ2+ tourists, and gearing up to celebrate the Canada-China Year of Tourism in 2018, which we expect will dramatically increase the number of Chinese tourists coming to Canada. Mr. Chair, our vision is reinforced by measures in Budget 2017, such as reliable funding for Destination Canada, our national tourism marketing organization, and $8.6 million over 4 years to help grow Canada's unique and authentic Indigenous tourism industry. Je suis heureuse de voir que nous avons une relation fructueuse.
I'm pleased to say that we have a fruitful relationship with provinces and territories, too.
Federal, provincial, and territorial tourism ministers in Iqaluit. We agreed to work together to increase our tourism competitiveness. Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement a un plan bien défini.
Mr. Chair, the government has a clear plan to support innovation and SMEs, help our tourism industry grow, and make it easier for more hardworking Canadians to join the middle class.
Opportunity to speak to you today, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much for your brief comments, and we're going to move right into questioning with Mr. Longfield. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and welcome to our committee, Minister Chagger. It's great to see you here this morning. I know it was a late night last night with Committee of the Whole. Great discussions there as well. But I wanted to look at tourism and the investments that Destination Canada is showing in the estimates, going from $62,975,000 last year to $95,475,000 this year. Significant increase in tourism investment, and I'm wondering whether you have a sense or part of your modeling in terms of revenue increases that we might expect in terms of our economy growth as a result of those investments.
And then, yes, it was a late night and it's a good morning, so we'll take it. And it's a pleasure to be here. So we're finally recognizing tourism as an economic driver, hence making the strategic investments. So for every dollar we invest in Destination Canada, the Crown Corporation leverages $1.10 from partner co-investments, resulting in $1.5 billion in attributable tourism export revenue in 2016 alone. So we know that the tourism industry is 2% of GDP, supporting 200,000 businesses and over 1.7 million jobs in Canada from coast to coast to coast. So the revenues are there. What's not happened in the past is investment in the tourism industry. So Destination Canada had some cuts to it. What Budget 2017 does, it gives it basically long-term funding. $37.5 million a year. And then the other money is from programs and, like Connecting America, Millennial Travel Program, and so forth.
Guelph has been looking at its tourism models and working when I was at the Chamber of Commerce, and since then, the City of Guelph, the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Association, Innovation Guelph, and some of the businesses are looking at tourism strategies. So fair to say that we're not wasting time looking at investing our time and effort in tourism, because there's matching funding as well as investment from the federal government.
So basically the way Destination Canada works, it's our Crown marketing organization, really markets to international markets, predominantly strategic markets. There is the Millennial Travel Program, which is to encourage millennials to really travel and explore the country, because stats show that they will. Destination Canada works with provinces and territories. I co-chair the FPT meetings, so provinces, territories, and the federal government come together at one table. Our last meeting was in Nunavut and Iqaluit that I was referring to, where we signed the Nunavut Declaration, setting priorities for provinces and territories for the federal government or Destination Canada to work with them. And then the municipalities, cities, and so forth would work with their provincial organization and are always welcome to connect directly with Destination Canada as well.
Perfect, thank you. And as Goody Hutchings always says, coast to coast to coast. Stats Canada, we're just finished a bit of a study on Stats Canada, but I think we need some further work. Looking at $8.3 million going into tourism data, looking at supporting small business with data and analysis. Our Downtown Business Association, again, is looking at what types of people shop in the downtown, where do they come from, what's their demographics. Maybe a comment on Stats Canada's relationship with your ministry.
Thank you. So Budget 2017, we saw an investment to Statistics Canada to broaden tourism data collection, and that's really because we need this data to effectively measure the growth of our tourism industry and to assess the effectiveness of our international tourism marketing efforts. So better data on domestic travel. We'll also strengthen planning for domestic tourism activities, and that's where this commitment of $13.6 million over 5 years is coming from, and then $2.7 million thereafter to expand Canada's tourism data collection. And basically this investment will be used to address existing data gaps, in particular for international tourists who enter Canada by land, as well as for international and domestic tourists domestic visitors to the north, while broadening the sample size for specific regions. So this is to be able for Destination Canada to better look at what markets do we want to be targeting, where are people coming from, where is there potential in other markets. We also want to be looking at the average spend of the visitors, because we want to ensure that they are bringing those export dollars to our country, helping our SMEs. And it's also so that I can better ballpark when you're asking me questions like this as to what is the potential, where are we at, what's the curve looking like. So as you know, the government really believes in evidence-based decision making, hence an investment to make sure that we have good data to back that as well.
Well, thank you, Minister, and don't be surprised you get an invitation to come to Guelph and join one of our roundtables.
Guelph is a great region, really close to the Waterloo region.
Thank you
so
very much.
I welcome any opportunity.
We're going to move to Mr. Richards. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Minister, thanks for being here today. I've got, I'll start with a yes or no question or a very brief response. I wanted to ask you if you agree that campgrounds play an important role in the tourism industry.
I believe every facet plays an important role in the tourism industry.
So campgrounds would be part of that, then, you would say?
I'm very inclusive. I think every community is touched by tourism industry. That's why it's an economic driver that's not been represented well.
Yeah, it's not a really good start because we can't even get a yes or no question to something simple, answer to something as simple as that. But anyway, I'll take that as a yes. So I want to ask then, if you do believe campgrounds are an important role in the industry, there's an issue that's really directly and very negatively affecting that particular sector of the industry, and I think it has the potential to affect a lot of other industry, parts of the industry as well. And it's one that your government is really ignoring. It's an issue that we're hearing sort of talking points, and we're getting no kind of answers back to the campgrounds as to how you're going to help them. There is a rule that is being used to target campgrounds, saying that their income is passive. Certainly there's no doubt that the work involved in campgrounds is anything but passive. And your government's argument is essentially that some small businesses are too small to be small businesses, which is ridiculous. And recently you, the Minister of National Revenue, and the Minister of Finance all co-signed a letter to the Canadian Camping and RV Council that stated that you recognize the important role that campgrounds play. You also in that same letter claim that the rules around active versus passive income haven't changed. But, however, you're basically telling them, too bad, so sad, we're going to continue to target your businesses as too small for being a small business. This was something that we recognized when we were in government was an issue, and we began a review of the rules. Your government canceled that in your first budget. And then that was after having 12 of 13 submissions say there was a real problem there and that this needed to be addressed and fixed, obviously something your government ignored. And then on August 23rd of 2016, the CRA, of course, released a new interpretation of the rules. And they're going after campgrounds. The Finance Committee, however, did say in their pre-budget report for this year's budget, and I'll read the recommendation for you, that the Government of Canada should recognize the income earned by campgrounds and storage facilities as active business income for the purpose of determining eligibility for the small business deduction. That's a pretty clear recommendation. Your government ignored it. So, Minister, I want to ask you, given all that, how you can claim that these rules haven't changed, and how you can actually say you support small businesses when your Liberal government is trying to target some small businesses and put them out of existence.
So as I've said on the record, and I'll continue to say, I will always work collaboratively with my colleagues. The previous government and this government have very different approaches. We believe that we can work better together.
So, Minister, let me just interrupt you on that, because my time is quite short. To say you'll work collaboratively is one thing. To do it is another. And you're saying that, but you're certainly not doing it. When you send a letter to campgrounds basically saying, sorry, we didn't do anything to change the rules, when it's very clear you have. And I think it's a pathetic excuse to say, well, we'll work with them collaboratively, but you have to actually do that. Maybe we can try a different subject, because I don't think we're getting anywhere with this one. So I'd like to ask you, Minister, if you would agree that labor is a very important part of the tourism industry.
Jobs are important to the Canadian economy. That's why we're making investments to create the conditions for growth so that the economy can grow.
Okay, so again, we're having a difficult time getting a yes or no answer, Mr. Chair, but we'll take that as a yes. So as you mentioned in your opening remarks, you did, of course, release last week a new tourism vision. And I'll put that sort of in quotations, because the tourism vision was nothing really but a rehash of the federal tourism strategy that our government had put in place. And that was certainly something that we were proud of. Having said that, when I look at that vision, after claiming there was consultation, your government really has brought really nothing new to the table in that regard. But the one thing it did do in your new vision was leave out one of the main priorities of the previous tourism strategy. And that priority was to foster an adequate supply of skills and labor to enhance visitor experiences through quality service and hospitality. That's completely gone. So your vision really clearly has no plan for an adequate supply of skills and labor for the tourism industry. There's, on the very last page, I believe it is, there's one very small mention of labor. but I really want to have you explain to us why you think that this is something you believe should not be an important issue facing the tourism industry, and why it's not one of your priorities, because it is a very significant issue facing the industry.
Unfortunately, you've run out of time, so we're going to move on.
Okay. Well, we wouldn't have got an answer from the minister, I'm sure, anyway, so thanks, Mr. Chair.
You're entitled to your comments. The minister is entitled to hers. We're going to move on. Brian Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Minister, for being here. In your discussion, you mentioned the Trump-Trudeau Initiative for Council for Advancement for Women. We have a piece of legislation, as you're aware, Bill C-25, that actually would require some better, I guess, standards for women on corporate board of directors. Your government has chosen not to amend that and to do a comply and explain model. This has been discussed in this House of Commons. The debate has been through. We're going to the final reading. We're going to a very weak model. Why is it that when at time you're setting up an American initiative for women leadership in business, that we wouldn't actually meet the average standard of other countries that have been progressive on this, and why leave it to the Trump initiative with Trudeau versus that of the legislation that's in the House of Commons?
So there is several pieces, at least 2 pieces of legislation in the House of Commons that are being debated, and I do believe that part of the challenge is that, you know, this is the government of Canada. It belongs to all Canadians, and if it's going to be a matter of, you know, us versus them, it doesn't really benefit the people we're working for. C-25 is legislation that has been advanced by the government. Minister Baines, I understand, will be here right after myself, and we'll welcome those opportunities. Different approaches. We're really trying to make sure that we're taking the steps to achieve the goals and the outcomes that we want to get to. Some people would like to get us there faster and believe that we'll have the results, and I would have to say that there'll be some disagreements in that sense.
It's rather unfortunate because you profess that that's important, but I would say that there's still an opportunity to fix the bill before it goes forward. When will these meetings take place between the Trump-Trudeau initiative?
So I don't have a schedule of meetings, but I'm sure that's information that's always made publicly available. Anywhere the Prime Minister goes, the media follows, but I don't have a schedule.
I don't believe the Prime Minister sits on this panel.
I believe the schedule is still being worked out, and the details of how the interoperability between the 2 countries is still an ongoing discussion.
Will the meetings take place in Canada?
That has not been determined yet.
Will when will we have...
I'll be fighting for that to happen.
Yeah, okay. When will we have more information?
You know.
I don't have the details of the exact schedule. The announcement was made. There's a number of prominent people that are involved in sharing their mind share on how we advance this important initiative.
Have those people been contacted, and how long do we wait before that takes place then?
Yeah.
What I understand is there have been ongoing discussions with the members on the Canadian side, and there continue to be preparations for their meetings.
Okay. Well, I mean, you come here and you talk about it, and you indicate that you're important, but you have no information about the initiative. I mean, you put it in your speaking notes. I mean, this is you mentioned it.
I did.
Yeah. Right. And then this has been announced 3 months ago, and this has been announced. Yeah, you did.
I thought I was invited here for
No,
estimates.
you raised it in your own discourse to this committee. I mean, you raised it yourself. I do want to move on, but I mean, I just find that troubling. And I'm trying not to be quite frank. I'm trying to do this professionally. If we move on to tourism, though, you didn't mention in your remarks related to tourism about the United States. The United States is 22 million of the 27 million visitors coming into Canada. What are you doing specifically for United States visitors? You mentioned China, which is 500,000. What about the United States are single, especially the dollar is slid against the U.S. dollar, and we're going into the season. What are you doing specifically for the United States?
So we have continued funding for the Connecting America program, which is $30 million to Destination Canada. These are the programs I was referring to that make up the difference between the 37.5 to the 95.5 budget that they have. So strategic markets in the U.S. Also looking at our gateway communities in Canada to ensure that we're really creating the conditions for inclusive growth. So it's not just about the large urban centers, but rural, remote areas as well.
And with that, you're in touch with Canada Border Service Agency and Tourism in terms of making sure we have the appropriate staffing on the land border crossings. So that's one of the things that is always of a concern. Is that?
So we're really taking the whole of government approach. So all ministers, cabinet colleagues are working closely together. So even the ETA, when the electronic travel authorization was coming into place, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, myself, and other counterparts work closely together when it comes to pre-clearance legislation, which is really important for SMEs as well as for tourists, so that they have a good experience from the minute they book their travel to the minute they leave. I was consulted and able to share the perspective of our stakeholders.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're out of time. We're going to move to Mr. Sheehan. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Really appreciate it. My first question is around, well, I'm from Sault Ste. Marie, and we have two large First Nations in the area, Garden River, Batchewana, and then we have urban and non-urban Indigenous people in Métis. And as part of this government's agenda, of rebuilding that relationship with Canada's Indigenous people, which they're really appreciating, I can tell you that much. I get positive results. Their question to me is, what is there, and they want to do stuff around tourism. What exactly does this government have for Aboriginal tourism?
So it's actually an exciting time. Keith Henry is the head of ATAC, the Aboriginal Tourism Association of Canada. ATAC is working really closely with Destination Canada. For the first time, it's a relationship to ensure that we are working hand in hand, because we recognize that there are huge opportunities there. In the budget, Budget 2017 provided $8.6 million to the Aboriginal, to INAC, which will end up being about growing tourism. The tourism vision that we came out with really focuses on marketing, access, and product, exactly in response to the constructive feedback we were receiving. So we know that there's already considerable success, because in 2015, Indigenous tourism generated $2.7 billion in gross economic output, $1.4 billion in GDP, which was up from $596 million in 2002, and we're talking about more than $142 million in taxes. So huge business opportunities, an opportunity also to grow communities that have not had that opportunity in the past. Once again, about inclusive growth.
Thank you very much. And my next question is around, I did a lot of work in my former life at the Economic Development Corporation with young entrepreneurs. And, perhaps you can make some comments and tell us what is in this budget going forward for young entrepreneurs. We know that 80% of all small businesses go to business in the first 3 years. Young people are even more challenged. So what opportunities are there?
So we've continued funding for Futurepreneur. Futurepreneur has delivered great results, and that's why it's a program that really works, connecting the mentorship piece as well as the skills and development. When it comes to Budget 2017, we're talking about skills and development across the board to ensure that Canadians are ready for the jobs of today and tomorrow. We know that those skills and skills will actually help them in the tourism industry as well. So rather than taking the silo approach, we are taking a whole of government approach, a whole of Canada approach, bringing the country together. So Futurepreneur is somewhere that's really getting huge potential, skills and development across the country for all generations. And then part of my mandate is really to look at underrepresented groups, so whether that's Indigenous peoples, whether that's women, whether that's youth, and then also looking at the regional areas and then what the shortages are there, because we know that Canada is huge land mass wise, but we are also quite diverse when it comes to our regions.
Okay. Again, recognizing where my riding is, and I think about winter and winter tourism. We have a ski resort, Searchmount, a number of facilities, snowmobiling, etc. And this is the first time the Searchmount actually was in the black in about a decade. What is there in the budget for winter sports, winter tourism?
So Canada's new tourism vision promotes winter tourism through two avenues: investing in our regionally diverse tourism offerings through our regional economic development agencies, which support tourism by investing in local tourism businesses, products, and experiences, including winter tourism, and promoting our national parks, many of which offer unique winter experiences in winter months, including cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, hiking, and more. So something we're noticing when it even comes to the jobs gap shortage is that it's quite a seasonal seasonal industry with the potential to actually be year-round. So one of the greatest things that Canada has to offer, unlike any other country, is 4 distinct seasons. So we want to showcase those 4 seasons, and if we can get the country working better together, perhaps the regions that have heavy summer months but not heavy winter months, we could share resources and actually be able to create those full-time, meaningful jobs that Canadians want and expect.
Well, that's very thoughtful. And I have a question about venture capital and access to it. I don't know how much time I have, but I'll just leave that out there.
Thank you very much for saving us 30 seconds. We're going to move to Mr. Lobb.
Much thanks, Minister,
You have
for
5 minutes.
for attending today. I'm just wondering, in the making of the budget and your budget suggestions to the minister, do you have any meetings with Dan Kelly from the CFIB for making recommendations?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. With that, do you feel it's your duty or responsibility to advocate to get the small business tax rate to 9%, or is that something that is completely off the table at this time?
So we've been communicating in regards to the opportunities, and once again, the previous government's approach and this government's approach are very different. We're really looking for results in growing the economy. So Mr. Kelly and I have spoken. I've spoken with many of his members. I've also spoken to the Small Business Matters Coalition, and if you actually look at their surveys and what their members are asking for, that's exactly where this government is headed through the strategic investments we're making.
Okay. Personal and capital gains tax treatment. Prior to the budget being delivered, there was a lot of apprehension about that, and certainly in my area where there's a lot of small business people there. Is that something that you're going to advocate on behalf of small business people to Minister Morneau to leave it alone? At least at nothing, leave it alone? That's not something you're looking at tinkering with at this time?
So I work closely with all of my colleagues, and I will continue to do that. When it comes to tax fairness, this government really believes in tax fairness, and that's why there is a review taking place.
Okay. Is it fair now?
The system?
In your view, is the capital gains at this rate fair now in your mind? Because you just said fairness. So is it fair now, or is it unfair?
And that's why it's important that we look at other countries, we look at what's taking place, and we look at the evidence, and that's the information we will make decisions based on.
Okay,
I
well,
will continue to advocate for...
That's a good point, because the United States is talking about the biggest tax reform in 30 or 40 years, and they're looking at capital gains potentially at 20%. So is that something you're looking at, perhaps, following lockstep with the United States to make it more advantageous for people who are investing in small business, et cetera, to take it to there then? Or is that going to create some sort of issue between Canada and the United States for investment, perhaps?
And as much as I appreciate through the chair that the member appreciates talking about hypotheticals, we're here really wanting to be able to deliver results and take action. So that's why, of course, we will look at the evidence. We will definitely look at other jurisdictions, something I've always encouraged.
That's a good point, and sorry to interrupt. That is a good point on evidence and things that have actually happened. Yeah. And so one thing that happened in the budget was the escalator on the excise taxes for small businesses, that microbreweries and distilleries. And I know, talking with them, if you would ask them prior to the budget if you thought they were going to increase the excise tax or decrease the excise tax, they would have told me, if worst case scenario, do nothing, maybe decrease it. And in fact, what you've done is put an escalator on there. So on that, when we're talking about facts and realities in other jurisdictions around the world, G7 nations, are reducing excise taxes. We're increasing excise taxes. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that.
So I come from the Waterloo region, and actually I speak to my local craft breweries and I guess my stakeholders as well, and that's not what I've been hearing. So I'm sure that there's many perspectives. We welcome all of them.
You might be interested,
but at
because
the same time,
some of the representatives.
It's not the only voice out there, just so you know.
Yeah, well, their voices were at the Finance Committee this week, and I don't know if any of these members were here, but I think they skewered Bill Morneau and Justin Trudeau quite competently on their excise tax increases. One last question. In my area, I'm not saying we're fully employed, but we're pretty close in my region, and we are having a very difficult time, if I talk to small businesses, attracting people to work in tourism-related industries, restaurants, for example. What is your government doing to help restaurateurs and others to be able to hire people and get their businesses working?
Probably having consultations.
There's definitely programs, but actually I will continue that from your earlier questioning with the CFIB and give you a response to what their asks were based on what their members were. Their biggest challenges were a shortage of skilled labor, just like you're referring to, government red tape, and then cost of innovative projects. So very supportive of the investments the government's making. When it comes to skills shortages, we want to make sure that Canadians have the skills for today and tomorrow, hence why we're investing in skills development and so forth.
For restaurant staff?
Hospitality is, your tone of that question is like you don't take tourism seriously. It's an economic
Thank you.
driver.
Thank you. We're out of time. We are going to move to Mr. Bayless.
Bonjour, Ms. Sager. Merci d'être avec nous.
Thank you, Ms. Hager, for being with us today. You have referred to the tourism sector and said that it represents 2% of GDP and 1.7 million people. And last week you spoke about a new vision for tourism. Could you please elaborate and tell us what the purpose and the objective of this new mission is? Thank you. In our new Canadian vision of tourism, we want to promote tourism and the food industry. And this is why we have developed a national tourism policy, and also in order to include the LGBTQ too.
As well as culinary tourism. So I think that all our MPs and all of Cabinet is working hard together, and if we continue to do so, we will be able to meet all the challenges.
Like a 30% increase in international tourism. And obviously Canada is a beautiful natural country. I have to imagine that we're going to be selling nature. And would that not have a positive impact on people coming to Canada, impact even using campgrounds, things of that nature?
Indeed, and that's why we're working closely with the Minister of Environment and Climate Change because of Parks Canada. They are our national jewels, and that's also why for Canada's birthday, we have a free pass so that you can visit any national park or historic site for free, because we really want to ensure that Canadians are discovering this country, as well as when people come to Canada, that they're not only considering the large urban centres, but the beautiful scenery that we have to offer as well. And that's why if you look at large markets like China are considering Canada, because they like the open space, they like the northern lights, they want to discover this fabulous country.
That will have a very positive impact on that industry, the sector.
Very much so.
Oh, very good to know. Tu avais déjà répondu un peu à une question que...
You've already answered a question that I had, but I'd just like to get a little more specific. As you know, Quebec has many opportunities to promote food tourism, agricultural tourism, wine, cheese. It's an opportunity not only to sell and export, but also to draw tourists to Canada. Can you talk a little bit more about your ideas for using that asset to everyone's benefit?
It was neat to see the different tourism operators from across the country coming together. Niagara Falls was talking about the fact that on the way to Niagara Falls, there's some time spent between Toronto to Niagara Falls, and there's so many wineries on the way, and that there would be huge opportunity there.
Excellent wineries.
Yes, excellent wineries. And it was interesting because our colleagues from Quebec were also present, and they said these are some of the things we're doing, and they were able to share some ideas as to, because the culture in Quebec is fabulous. And that's why we really want to showcase 10 great provinces, 3 great territories. And when it comes to the culinary tourism piece that you're talking about, every single community across this country has the ability to create the jobs and growth that they want with that vision. So what our vision is talking about is marketing to ensure that not only Canadians but the world knows about what we have to offer. Access, working with the Minister of Transport, Minister of Public Safety, so forth, to ensure that people are able to come into the country, whether it's the visa or whether to ensure that it's a good experience right from the beginning. And then product. So people do come to our country, but we want them to spend their money and take a little piece of Canada with them.
Buy our food, our great food.
That's right. And so that product is that wine, is that food, is the indigenous knick-knack that you cannot receive anywhere else, but to ensure that those communities are benefiting. Ecotourism is a huge part of the vision, and we hope to build off of it.
In my previous life, I did a lot of travel in the United States. I had a lot of visitors come up and that too, and they would all say to me that Quebec City was a hidden treasure, and they didn't want me to talk about Quebec City because they thought it was the most beautiful city in North America, and the last thing they wanted was more American tourists. So how can we go against that? How can we let the secret out of the bag?
We are promoting this country like it's not been promoted before, and the world is looking to Canada for leadership on many fronts, especially when it comes to not only being an innovation nation, but to be a vacation nation. And we're going to ensure that whatever experience they're looking for, we are providing them that experience. And I will tell you, when we signed the Nunavut Declaration, it was a fruitful conversation that took place, and great provinces like Quebec were able to help highlight the importance of festivals and events, so that when people are coming to this country for that experience they're looking for, we recognize that there's also other time to spend, that they can support the local community, and festivals and events will be part of that experience. Showcasing small businesses or restaurants and so forth will be part of that experience. So we want to make sure that we're working better than with the cab that picks them up to say, these are the top 10 things going on in this area, and if you want to travel for an hour and a half, you can also go do this. And that's where we want the country working together to really showcase what we have to offer.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Albus. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Minister, and Deputy and Assistant Deputy. Thank you very much for being here today. I'd like to start, Minister, just in relation to the estimates. Your government claims to be supporting innovation in Canada, but through these estimates, you plan to actually decrease money that goes towards marketplace competition and investments. Now, obviously, innovation and competition go hand in hand. Why is your government taking away funding from this area, and why aren't you supporting more competition in this great country?
I'm sure we can get you some numbers and a different answer, because I'm sure you won't appreciate mine, as that seems to be the norm. But actually, I will tell you, our approach is a little bit different.
Minister, I asked a question. There is a shift away from it. What is the policy rationale?
So we are investing in the innovation agenda, as you know. So that's $800 million, plus increased investments at this time. We're working with the regional development agencies to ensure that we are looking at the regional differences across the country. The approach is different.
I don't disagree that the approach is different. What I'm asking is, why are you changing the approach when it comes to the marketplace competition investments?
We are changing the approach because the previous approach did not deliver the results that it can, so therefore we are taking a different approach to encourage innovation across strategic sectors to help create the growth.
So what was the failure in competition?
Sorry, can I just ask for some specifics on what you're quoting? Because when I'm looking at the main estimates for our department, for example, we've got a total of $2.6 billion, an increase of $1.3 billion.
Okay. So my information may be incorrect,
so
is that right?
I just would like to know specifically what you're quoting, and then I can look at the numbers and perhaps provide an explanation.
Okay, well,
but if we look at ISET as a department,
we'll get to this.
We're increasing overall.
Maybe we could just switch to a different area, which is apparently there's money going to marketplace framework and regulation. Because you've mentioned, Minister, that one of the top priorities of groups like CFIB is obviously red tape. So can you explain what marketplace frameworks and regulation is and what it's supposed to do?
Just on this issue, I'd like to point out that Minister Baines will have a chance to speak to this. In terms of the Canada Free Trade Agreement, the CFIB recognized that the culmination in the new agreement was worthy of an award, and the CFIB gave to Minister Baines, as well as other ministers, provincial ministers, a Golden Scissors Award.
And just to
can I just provide
Ms. Gillis's earlier intervention, I am looking on the estimates, and it is in Part 2 of the main estimates, 2.117. Specifically, there's two items that come under. One is marketplace frameworks and regulations. which under the 2017 main estimates is at 73,477,129.
Yeah.
And then right underneath that, marketplace competition investments is at 41,903,401.
Okay.
So these are clearly under your particular department.
Correct. So if I look at marketplace frameworks and regulations, which last year was $66 million, compared to this year, which is $73 million, so there's an increase. It includes Measurement Canada, it includes Consumer Affairs, and it includes the Canadian Intellectual Property Office. So these activities also include the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, Corporations Canada, and the increase from last year is primarily due to planned investments to modernize the Canadian Intellectual Property Office's IT.
Okay. So there's actually an increase. Okay, well, that's nice to know.
Yes.
Now, in regards to red tape initiatives, Minister, I've heard almost nothing from your government in terms of the Regulatory Advisory Committee in regards to the Red Tape Reduction Act. Is that something that you work with the President of the Treasury Board on?
You want to take it? Yeah.
Yes, we work directly with the Treasury Board. The Treasury Board is in the lead in terms of these activities. As I mentioned, I think two issues that have come up demonstrate the kinds of work we're doing on regulatory issues. One is intellectual property, and the second is the Canada Free Trade Agreement, where we've negotiated with provinces a new instrument to constantly review regulations within the government, within Canada, on an ongoing basis.
Okay. Could you maybe just describe some of the things that would have a small business application in that agreement?
Well, as I mentioned, and I think this is something that should be raised with Minister Baines. He can speak
Fair enough.
to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We are going to move on to Mr. Jahari. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning and welcome, Minister. Minister, yesterday I had the opportunity to attend the Public Safety Committee, which is currently studying Bill C-23, an act respecting the pre-clearance of person and goods in Canada and in the United States. One of the witnesses was the Tourism Industry Association of Canada. The association believes that the Government of Canada should do all it can to improve border access and infrastructure, build on the pre-clearance services and trusted traveler program to increase tourism. Having said that, Minister, what views do you have as to the positive impact that the pre-clearance can have specifically to increase U.S. tourism to Canada?
Thank you, and I hope it was a good meeting. Charlotte and I, Charlotte, who is the head of the Tourism Industry Association of Canada, which is also known as TIAC, and I actually work really closely together. The TIAC team, Destination Canada, work really closely together as well. And it really helps us to strengthen the tourism industry. And we recognize the importance of the U.S. market as our #1 source for tourists. And that's exactly why we've expanded the marketing efforts through the Connecting America program. And we also know that a secure, well-functioning border is essential to that experience. When people have a good experience visiting our country, they will keep coming back. And that's why I'm working closely with Minister Goodale as well. And we know that 70% of international tourists come from the United States. And we don't mind seeing that number grow. And overnight trips of air travels from the U.S. has increased 17%, and we would like to see that number continue. So pre-clearance is something that I believe is essential not only for the tourism industry and tourists who are traveling, but also for our small and medium-sized businesses that talk about, the red tape and the burden. You are going to be able to have your goods, your services pre-cleared prior to hitting the border, which means it does not have to leave your site. So I think it's a great thing. And for the tourists, the minute that they are booking their travel or considering coming to visit Canada, they can start their pre-clearance process as well. Takes minutes. It's actually not very complicated, and that's when they'll know if they can have a really easy go at the border or if it might be a little bit of a challenging time, then they can plan for that accordingly. But I believe the numbers of people who are getting pre-cleared are quite high.
Okay, great. Next question is on the small businesses and the partnership that it's between what I consider as the small businesses grow. We get them funding through the BDC, and we've allocated about $400 million to support that. Now, they grow, and we need to get into the market outside of Canada, and therefore EDC come into play. How do you envision Tourism Canada, EDC, and small businesses going hand in hand to help us grow the small business?
So that's been the challenge. And so that's why we're taking a whole government approach where all ministers are having to work together. So it's not a matter of creating or solving a problem here and creating a challenge there. It's coming to the table and serving the best interest of all Canadians. We do very well at starting up businesses. This government is putting a focus now on scaling them up so that we can actually see that growth. And it's interesting because when you talk to our entrepreneurs, you talk to our small business owners, they want to grow their businesses. That is part of the success, and they want to create jobs in their communities. The Accelerator Growth Service is a program that we've brought in, and you're talking about 20 federal departments and agencies coming together to save the entrepreneur time. A single person that knows your business, knows you, and is able to help you go through the pipeline of programs that the government has. Something we hear often is that people don't know about government programs, and we are going to help to ensure that they do. So, with the AGS, it's helped 150 high-impact firms to scale up, grow their businesses, and broaden. The broader goal of the AGS is 1,000 firms.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you 45 seconds back.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Massey. You have the final 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for a second opportunity to return a little bit to the tourism aspect. One of the things that you mentioned was with Minister Goodall. One of the things regionally we've been trying to improve tourism. We were successfully recently able to get a bike lane on the new Gordie Howe Bridge. That'll help ecotourism through that, and cyclists have the most disposable income of tourism. So that was a good thing that took place. One of the things that we've been trying to work on is a passenger ferry between Windsor and Detroit. I've been working with Senator Peters over the years, and there's been a little bit of resistance related to the customs aspect to it. So I suppose what I'm asking you, is there a process in your department to do at least some type of a study or some type of evaluation of tourism potential related to this? We have had official meetings, and there has been customs, discussions as expense. Detroit, their port authority, has actually an area for both customs on one side. It's been built, and they actually have money over $1 million for this. So I would ask whether or not there would be a role for tourism, and especially most of this fits with small business as well too, to examine this. Some of this falls under transport as well, and of course, so there's several departments in fact. So I'll leave it to that as a question to you. Is that is a role?
Okay.
Well, the question is there a role to get your department somehow involved in the evaluation and further examination of the item?
So I'll tell you, we finally have a full Minister of Small Business and Tourism, so of course we will be at that table. I would think that it would be transport or infrastructure that would be on the lead, and then we would be at the table to ensure that our voice is represented so that we can show the economic impacts and benefits to the country.
Right, but if we have buy-in from the United States on this,
Sorry.
it's a part of your department that will help with.
Mr. Massey, we're out of time.
Okay, I'll follow. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. On that note, I wish to thank the minister and the deputy ministers for attending with us today. Great job. We are going to suspend and switch over to Minister Bains. Whew. Keeping on track here, we are going to continue now. With us for the second part of this is we have the Honourable Navdeep Bains, PC MP, Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development, as well as, again, John Nubley, Deputy Minister. We're just going to jump right into it. Mr. Bains, you have 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes.
Well, thank you very, very much, Chair, and it really is a pleasure for me to be here again, and it's a delight to be back and to have an opportunity to speak with my colleagues. And I'm pleased to share with the committee the details of our government's plan to create the well-paying jobs of today and tomorrow that was outlined in the budget, and I know today we'll be talking about main estimates and supplementary estimates A as well. Our plan will provide a better life for the middle class and those working hard to join it. That's a commitment that we made, and that's what I will try to reflect in our remarks this morning. Monsieur le Président, l'économie canadienne.
Mr. Chair, Canada has a stable and growing economy, which is increasingly rare for countries these days. The Bank of Canada's April Monetary Policy Report projects economic growth of 2.5% in 2017.
Fund, Canada's economy will be the second fastest growing among G7 nations for this year and next. And this growth benefits Canadians, all Canadians. And we've seen incredible gains in the number of full-time jobs added to the economy. More than 250,000 good quality jobs have been added since last fall. This pace of growth did not happen by chance. Our government is making the smart and responsible investments that have resulted in better jobs and opportunities, as I said, for all Canadians. As part of the Innovation and Skills Plan outlined in Budget 2017, our government is investing in research, technology, and commercialization. And that's how we'll position Canada as a world leader in innovation. It's really our focus on making sure that Canada is at the leading edge when it comes to innovation. Notre objectif est d'encourager.
Our objective is to encourage more business investment in research and development and turn more ideas into solutions for the marketplace.
Growth areas where Canada is a world leader. And these are included in the budget. And for example, this is advanced manufacturing, agri-food, clean technology, clean resources, the digital economy, and health and biosciences. These sectors are where Canada already has a globally competitive advantage. And worldwide demand for the goods and services produced by these sectors is growing rapidly. So there's enormous growth in these areas. That's why in the budget, we committed $1.8 billion in new financing for clean technology. Because clean tech is a promising area for growth and investment. And it's also an area of the economy that will cushion us against the intensifying effects of climate change. And this funding will result in more equity financing, working capital, and project financing for clean tech companies as well, and enable them to become more export-oriented. It also includes a $400 million in recapitalization funding for Sustainable Development Technology Canada, which supports early-stage clean tech companies. Près d'un milliard de dollars a été également
Budget 2017 also includes nearly $1 billion to accelerate innovation. This investment will support a small number of innovation superclusters. These dense areas of business activity contain large and small companies, universities and colleges, as well as specialized talent and infrastructure.
Energize economies as engines of growth. We've seen this globally. And that's how our government will support the startup and scaling up of Canadian businesses. And as these companies grow beyond our borders, they will create well-paying jobs for Canadians. So it's about growth and jobs. Mr. Chair, Canadians are living in a period of enormous change. Technology and automation are rapidly reshaping the job market. And these changes require Canadians to reimagine how we prepare for the jobs of today and tomorrow. That's why our government is making targeted investments in skills training that starts early and continues throughout a person's career. So it's about lifelong learning. As part of this plan, we are giving more Canadians the opportunity to develop digital skills, skills needed again for them to succeed today and tomorrow as well. Under our government's plan, school-aged children will have the opportunity to learn how to write basic computer programs. They will also be encouraged to take courses in science, technology, engineering, and math. In addition, our government will provide support for the creation of 10,000 work-integrated learning placements a year. So it's really about, again, that lifelong learning of culture. And these programs will help university and college students integrate more quickly into the workforce after they graduate. The Innovation and Skills Plan will also deliver simpler, more coordinated support for the country's innovators and job creators. So it's about program simplification, being more client-oriented, being more customer-focused. Companies trying to focus on their technology and sales find it far too cumbersome to navigate through a patchwork of government programs to get support. And in the budget, we address this issue through the creation of Innovation Canada. This new single window service will bring all of the government's business innovation programs together. L'objectif est de faciliter l'accès.
The goal is to make it easier and more effective for Canadian innovators to access these programs. As a first step, Innovation Canada will oversee the creation of the Strategic Innovation Fund, worth $1.26 billion.
For the aerospace and automotive sectors. And it will be expanded to support high-growth sectors such as clean technology, information communications technology, and agri-food, some of the key areas that I identified in the table set out in our budget. To support this program expansion, the budget proposes to build on the existing funding by providing an additional $200 million. So we'll combine these programs and then provide an additional set of resources, up to $200 million. The fourth element of the Innovation and Skills Plan is strategic investments to grow Canadian companies. For young companies, having government as a first customer has been much more important to them. It's not simply about the size of the contract, but the strategic value. That early stage validation by government can change the trajectory of a firm. That's why the budget proposes a new procurement program called Innovative Solutions Canada. And it will create more opportunities for businesses to develop innovations that address the pressing challenges of the government. And this program will provide small and medium-sized businesses with a platform to develop and test new products and new services. Toutes ces initiatives montrent bien que
all these initiatives show that the Government of Canada is willing to take risks and bet on new ideas. We are also willing to be a strong partner in their growth and in supporting companies' expansions. In return, our government will have access to the most innovative products and services.
Venture Capital Catalyst Initiative. I know we've discussed this in the past. This funding will increase the availability of risk capital for Canadian entrepreneurs. This $400 million private sector funding is very important, and this funding would inject a large infusion of venture capital into the Canadian market. Finally, Mr. Chair, our Innovation and Skills Plan will strengthen Canada's business frameworks in support of innovation and growth. For example, we are developing a national strategy on intellectual property, and I'm honored to work with David Lametti, who really understands this subject matter really well. Having ownership of the ideas and solutions that Canadians create is critical to a knowledge economy. We can do more to ensure that investments in research and development go beyond innovation. They should also lead to innovations that actually benefit people, benefit Canadians. We need to create a culture that ensures that policies and business strategies are developed with intellectual property in mind as part of their business strategy. And we are also modernizing the Broadcasting Act and the Telecommunications Act. And we're working with the provinces and territories to implement the new Canadian Free Trade Agreement, which will come into force July the 1st. So, Mr. Chair, our government's investments under the Innovation and Skills Plan ensures that Canada will compete globally for the most talented people, the newest technologies, and the fastest growing companies. And this plan will allow Canada to develop a workforce that can compete based on advanced and specialized skills. And it will also encourage Canadians to develop a culture, as I said before, of lifelong learning. It'll create stronger public-private partnerships, and it will create well-paying middle-class jobs for Canadians. And I'm also confident that as a result of our government's investments, a new generation of Canadian firms will develop into globally competitive companies, true, strong global brands. So merci, Monsieur le Président et autres membres honorables.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, and honourable members of this committee. I will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Much for keeping your opening remarks brief.
We're good. Follow your instructions, Chair.
Thank you. We're going to move, Mr. Aria, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Deputy Noble. Minister, I would like to ask a question on commercialization, especially the technologies that have been developed in the government labs. Being from Ottawa, I'm always keen on the defense side of the things, especially the defense C4 ISR industries. Take, for example, the Defense Research Development Canada. 2 or 3 times I have asked the Defense Minister what steps he's taking to unlock the technologies that have been developed in DRDC and allow it to be commercialized by the private sector. And every time he did acknowledge that, and he did mention that he is in touch with you on those things. So we have invested like that in several other government labs over a long period of time. So what are you doing to unlock these technologies and commercialize these technologies?
Well, thank you very much for that thoughtful question, because it really is a priority for our government, as I mentioned. We want to get these good ideas that we invest in. We want to commercialize them. We want to generate revenue, we want to create jobs, and we want to find solutions that actually benefit Canadians. So innovation is really about better outcomes, a better quality of life, a better society. And so it's not always about the latest gadget. Yeah. It's really about how can we really improve things going forward. And you're absolutely right. I work very closely with Minister Sajjan and Defense on a range of areas where we want to help further accelerate commercialization of ideas. One area is through the Industrial Technological Benefits Program that we have when we acquire major assets for the military. And that's an area where I think through our value proposition, we really move the yardstick, and it's going to be really meaningful for the economy and for different sectors, particularly the aerospace sector. But with regards to government labs and DRDC, as you mentioned, we're really engaged with NRC. The National Research Council, because one of the objectives of the National Research Council is to take these government lab initiatives to partner up with them to help further accelerate that commercialization. So that's an area where we're working very closely together with Defense, and again, taking these ideas that are generated in the lab to quickly commercialize them so Canadians can benefit and actually society can benefit.
Yeah. Talking of NRC, I know there appears to be a decreased budget on supporting industry-related research. For example, IRP's budget is staying flat, and technology development and advancement is dropping from main estimates of 382 million to 279 million. Is there something I don't understand here?
No, not at all. As you know, I'm an accountant, so I'm very comfortable with numbers. And actually, if you look at the budget cycle and you look at the main estimates and the way the main estimates are done, they really reflect a bit of a timeline up to, the timeline that we're looking at, for example, is for the main estimates from June to December. Okay. Right? And then supplementaries from December to April the 13th. And what you see is really the profiling and the approval process through Treasury Board. As you know, in the budget, we committed to actually more money for NRC through IRAP, the Industrial Research Assistance Program. And so what you're seeing here is the decrease in funding is mainly due to a one-year funding announcement in budget 2016 for the Industrial Research Assistance Program. So it's a profiling issue. It's not a decrease in the budget. If anything, we've actually added more money to IRAP, and you'll see that ramping up through future supplementary estimates.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. In fact, I was thinking on that lines. And I was in the technology sector before I moved into politics we had support from the government from various programs like IRAP, SADI.
Yep.
There are a lot of government programs that support research and development in the private sector. But what I noticed was that they were operating in silos.
Correct.
We are funding under IRAP, but those people are not talking to the people who are managing the SADI program, Strategic Aerospace and Defense Initiative. And we invest billions of dollars through STRED. And of course, the Sustainable Technology Development you are funding. How can we integrate all these?
Very briefly, you have about 20 seconds.
Yeah, so as you know, when we engage with innovation leaders and businesses, clearly, as I mentioned in my remarks, being customer-oriented and client service-oriented is so critical. We as a government want to be nimble and thoughtful about that. That's why we introduced Innovation Canada as an initiative. It is a single window for all innovation-related programs and policies to help businesses to coordinate that, to avoid some of that cumbersome challenges that businesses face. And if we get another opportunity to speak about it, I can speak to some of the initiatives in that area of Innovation Canada.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Mr. Dreeshen. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. And I'll try to keep my preambles as short as I possibly can. Basically, I suppose one of the things that we've heard consistently is how your plan is to provide a better life for the middle class and those working hard to join it. Seems to be in everything we hear. And again, your first comment on the economic outlook, Canada has been doing amazingly well. And if we start to take a look at what happened back in 2008 and 2009 and be realistic about where Canada has gone and how they managed, I think that's really a critical part. So we're proud of, all Canadians should be proud of what we have managed to do over the last decade under the circumstances that we were presented with. You did talk about how you should want to look into new areas like clean tech and so on. You want to kind of push dollars, or at least push thinking that way. And of course, one of the concerns, and our group had been down in the U.S. A couple of weeks ago, and just wanting to make sure, though, that whatever governments do, that they aren't out there picking winners and losers, and that they actually make sure that everybody gets an opportunity. And again, you look at things like carbon capture and storage that we have out in the West. We've got windmills all over the place as well, which of course there's a big debate whether or not that is actually clean technology. So these are the sorts of things that we take a look at. And when we look at that, then it begs the question, when we are taking a look at the dollars that are being spent for ACOA and Western economic diversification, the four Atlantic provinces have a population of 2.4 million. They get $311 million, or 27% of the government's expenditure. Comparing that to 199.6 million, 17% for the four Western provinces that have a population of 11.5. When you start to take a look at it and you say, okay, well, what areas actually need the extra help and so on, doesn't really look as though that's what's happening as far as those departments are concerned. So you start to take a look and say, well, are we really picking winners and losers on the tech side, or are we taking a look at places to invest? And the question is that are somewhat more political in nature rather than actually there. So I do have some other questions, and I'll give you an opportunity to explain just what is happening as far as the investments and whether or not they're actually being targeted for specific industries, and what the rationale is, especially looking at the economic conditions in Western Canada.
Again, thank you for your question, and I think your earlier observation about the fact that growth is up, GDP is up, exports are up, jobs are up. This is all indicative of the fact that the economy is doing really well. Obviously, we're proud of the fact that it's headed in a positive direction, but we can and must do better, and that's why we actually have a plan, and we want to implement that plan. And so I'll talk briefly about that. But with regards to the banking sector, you're right, this is a point of pride as well for Canada. And we really weathered the storm in 2008, 2009.
If we could be more specific.
Okay, I was just commenting on what you said.
I understand. I prefer not
because you brought that up, so I wanted to.
I'm not offended if you go straight to the answer.
Understood. So the question you asked is how do we determine priorities and how do we make those decisions? What we're saying is we go out there in the market and look at where are the growth areas. So if you look at clean resources, if you look at clean tech, if you look at agri-food, if you look at digital industries, if you look at advanced manufacturing, this is where the growth is taking place. This is where there's growth within Canada, but globally as well. And for example, initiatives that we're proposing, say for example the superclusters initiative, and I'll be proposing the criteria in a matter of days, that speaks to, again, a partnership model where government doesn't choose, but government wants to be at the table. And these are the 6 areas that we determine where the growth is and where the job potential is.
If I could just interrupt, are those then being dealt with through Western economic diversification and so on? So if that's the case,
Sure.
then that would explain that part. The second question then I'd like to talk to you about, and you're talking about how the federal government is going to get into provincial jurisdiction as far as education is concerned, and so on. And as a former teacher, I understand what the ramifications of that are. Of course, we went through the financial literacy initiative and so on. So there's a lot more detail than simply saying we're going to throw some money out there and everybody should be happy because we've dealt with all of this. So I'm just wondering if you could quickly comment on that. And again, our space exploration, there's been a planned cuts to the funding for the Canadian Space Agency when it comes to the portion related to space data, information, and services. So you don't have much time. I don't have much time, so let's go.
No worry. How much time do I have, Chair? Okay. So we actually increased funding for the Canadian Space Agency. In the first budget, we put in $379 million. And in the recent budget, we included another $80 million for the Canadian Space Agency as well. So we've been increasing funding there. I'm really excited about the recruitment campaign for the astronauts as well. We're going to be announcing our final 2 astronauts in the coming weeks as well.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Massey. You have 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Minister, for being here today. One of the concerns, and it has been a success in many respects recently with our output, is auto manufacturing. And thank you for the Ford investment. It was long sought after, and I think it was an important movement that will continue to see the footprint remain for that facility. But the reality, though, overall, is that the changes to your the Auto Innovation Fund to this new Strategic Innovation Fund are a little bit troubling in terms of how auto fits in. And specifically, Auto Innovation Fund was $500 million. The Auto Parts Supplier Fund was 100, and then so for a total of 6. And now we have a 1.3, billion.
We'll round it up.
Yeah, we'll round it up. Fine, fair enough. A billion fund for everything, but also includes these new sectors. So I guess my concern is now we have all these new sectors in innovation that doesn't seem to be described as much as the parameters. How can I feel confident that auto innovation will not be diluted more? Because we had specific funds, and it was a long sought-out battle to get separate funds, and now it's lumped back in together with other things.
Correct. I think our commitment to the automotive sector has been very clear. As you mentioned rightfully, we extended the Automotive Innovation Fund. Then we changed the profile to a grant model. And then we saw recent success with the $41.8 million invested in the Honda facility, which helped secure jobs there and bring close to $500 million worth of investments there. I was proud to be with you at the Ford announcement as well, which is very substantial. And it had 2 components to it, which I think is really important for people to understand. One was obviously the jobs at the engine plant, but also the R&D facility as well, and a lot of the R&D that's taking place as well. The objective of the new fund, the Strategic Investment Fund, is to, again, be open to all sectors. But that means the automotive sector has more money to be able to tap into that as well. So if there's better projects that they come forward with, if they have R&D, if they can create jobs, if they can increase their footprint in Canada, if they can invest in building the car of the future, invest in that kind of technology, our door will always remain open. And we're actually very engaged with other automakers right now to look for additional investment opportunities. So I can assure you we're committed to the automotive sector. It contributes $18 billion to our economy. It employs close to 500,000 Canadians, both direct and indirect. And we're very focused on getting additional investments. And that $1.26 billion strategic investment fund actually will allow the automotive sector additional opportunities if they choose to pursue it. And we're actually very engaged with the sector.
So, okay, so I'll leave that part of it there now. Are there further plans to adjust, or is your government looking at the fact that, say, for example, under NAFTA, currently there has been a relocation of money from an auto investment from Mexico to the United States because of, Trump claims it's him, the company claims it's not. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, though, will there be some sort of goal from your government, though, about our the fact that we're really, of the three partners in NAFTA, we're the lesser of the three getting auto investment?
I think, we're very sensitive to investment opportunities, and particularly in the automotive sector, and that's why we changed it to a grant model. We recognized that we were losing out to Mexico and we're losing out to southern parts of the U.S. in the past, and that's why we really stepped up our game. I can tell you right now, I've made the pitch for, and I would like your thoughts on this, I think the automotive sector is very critical to our innovation agenda. I think people see automotive as very much a traditional industry. I don't. I see the potential around connected and autonomous vehicles, the software, the fact that GM's hired 1,000 engineers in Canada speaks to a very bright future here. So when I talk about the automotive sector, I talk about it as part of our innovation agenda. And I think as long as we present it in that manner, the opportunities will present themselves.
Seconds. Great. Well, yeah, I know. I think that's the transfer of technology capabilities in the auto sector is huge. And lastly, with the auto sector and that as well is obviously the border. Is there now we're waiting for the third the stage of the Gordie Howe Bridge being the three bids to come back in. Is there a backup plan? Should one of those, because the government's doing a P3, public-private partnership, is there at least consideration of a backup plan if, say, for example, the consortiums come back and it's not favorable?
So I'll be engaging with the Minister of Infrastructure to better understand what those options look like, but I can assure you the message I conveyed to Governor Schneider when we were at the Great Lakes Forum, you attended that as well, was that we're very committed to that project. It's so critical. As you know, when I went to Odette and the University of Windsor, those 10,000 trucks over the Ambassador Bridge is a big issue for us, and we need to actually have the Gordie Howe Bridge moving forward in a meaningful way. It's a priority for our government. We're committed to it, and I'll work closely with the Minister of Infrastructure on this project.
Thank you very much.
And that's 10,000 trucks per day.
Thank you very much. We're going to lose.
That's a very good point.
We are moving to Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Sheehan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Minister, for that presentation. In the Sioux in Northern Ontario, retaining and attracting young people is a key priority. So how will the innovation agenda support that priority?
So I'm glad you asked that question, and I was delighted to be there in the Sioux with you when I visited and had the opportunity to look at, in particular, all the investments for diversifying the economy there. Obviously, we were talking about Algoma Steel, and that's such a key employer there. We're talking about the Canada-U.S. relation because of the proximity to the border. But the investments in clean tech and the fact that there was such an effort in that area to really take advantage of diversifying the economy in clean technology is a very promising area. I think as you and I came to know, as we visited a lot of clean tech startups, we had a round table with clean tech companies and talked about what their concerns were. And because of those conversations, we presented a budget that dealt with those issues, from early stage commercialization through more investments in Sustainable Development Technology Canada, that's $400 million. And then above and beyond that, the $1.4 billion allocated for working capital to look at long-term patient capital, and then ultimately through Export Development Canada to get those products outside of the Sioux and into the U.S. and more importantly into other international markets as well. And so I think that's one promising area as well. And when it comes to young people, as you know, we're very focused on investing in young people. They're very creative. They're very thoughtful. So early initiatives like coding, learning how to develop the skills of solving problems, digital literacy is very important, and then work integrated learning. I mentioned that in my remarks as well. My Tax is such an important initiative. This will really provide meaningful opportunities to young people, especially in the Sioux, who are in post-secondary education, to get that work experience. So when they're finished their studies and the employer says, do you have any experience? They can say yes. And they can hit the ground running. I learned the hard way when I did my studies and I didn't have that experience, but then I was part of a co-op program at Windsor, and that really opened up a lot of opportunities, and I actually started my career at Ford Motor Company of Canada. So I do have a bit of an auto bias, which you heard from the previous set of remarks as well. So I think it's very promising. We're very focused on the Sioux in terms of supporting steel and some of those very important key anchors of job creation, but also focusing on clean tech, and there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
And before I pass my time to Lloyd, I just wanted to thank you for the increase of the $25 million for FEDNOR, our Regional Economic Development Agency. It's very well welcomed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry, and thanks, Minister, for being here. Always a pleasure. I wanted to build on some comments that Mr. Dreeshen was leading into. And I always forget your background in accounting, so I want to draw on that a little bit. My background's engineering, so you know we need you. The Canadian Space Agency, the decrease in the estimates showing a decrease of $78.6 million. I think we're looking at a cash flow statement, sort of, with the estimates.
Yes.
There's also a GL, which we don't normally see in the government, and then there's balance sheet, which is also.
That's right.
So in terms of normal business analysis, it's hard to do, but we are looking at the investment in broadband, which is something that Mr. Dreeshen has really been promoting for our committee to get into, and decreasing radar stat in any way having an impact on our ability to achieve broadband goals. And the other area is when we look at IP, another study that we're looking at coming forward, there's a lot of IP attached to aerospace industry that gives us value in our economy. So could you maybe comment on where we're at in terms of the Canadian Space Agency and how the programs there will be looked at going forward so that we're not going to be losing at the end of the day?
So we're very committed to the Canadian Space Agency. As I mentioned in the first budget, we increased the amount by $379 million. In the most recent budget, we added an additional $80.9 million. We've established a new advisory committee as well to provide long-term direction for the Canadian Space Agency. We're currently in the process of developing a long-term space strategy. It's about, supporting the International Space Station and deep space exploration, but it's also about focusing in areas of technology that can be, that can benefit us here on Earth as well. And so this is an area of priority for us. And I think the numbers you're referring to, the decrease in funding, when you're looking at the estimates, is mainly related to the RadarSat constellation mission. So it's a profiling issue. It's like you said, it's a cash flow issue. By no means does it reflect actually a decrease in our funding for the Canadian Space Agency. It's just the way it's being profiled. And so I think that's what you see the delta as. With regards to broadband, as you know, Connect to Innovate, we launched that program of $500 million, very well received, oversubscribed because the deadline was April the 12th, and we're now evaluating projects and initiatives, and we're really excited about getting those out to some of the rural and remote communities that will benefit from our commitment to providing high-speed internet access to some of those communities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Lobb. You have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Minister, for attending today. First question I hadn't planned on asking, but it came out of your comments you did in your speech, and it's right in the economic outlook, and it said, it talks about the economic growth rate for 2017, and it says this pace of growth, these are your words, the pace of growth did not happen by chance. Our government is making the smart and responsible investments that have resulted in better jobs and opportunities in Canada. So is it in those comments, and I don't want to twist your words, but are you trying to say that it is your investments, your government's investments, that has spurred this economic growth that we're seeing in Canada right now?
So the comments I was making is that government plays a role in economic growth by creating the conditions for businesses and people to succeed, and we put forward a plan that's creating those positive conditions for growth.
Okay. Now, it's interesting because if you read any article that comments, Business Journal, et cetera, that comments on economic growth that's taking place right now, you may be surprised, you may not be surprised, not one line is in there about the Liberal government's investments making the economy happen. What you will hear is it's the cheap Canadian dollar, the strong U.S. economy, household and public sector spending. Nowhere in there does it say anything about any of the investments. So all I'm trying to say is when we're putting out documents like this, we need to maybe have some reality in actually what is spurring the Canadian economy at this time. And if it is your government's position that it's only you and solely you, then I guess you'll take responsibility for slower growth next year. But we'll move on from that. The next one I want to ask you about is the decision that came from your department earlier in the year in regards to the takeover of Retirement Concepts by Cedar Tree Investments, okay? That process, there's many, many Canadians, and particularly in British Columbia, they have some serious apprehensions about the process, and they have some serious apprehensions about Angbang Insurance. I know you've made comments in the House of Commons and perhaps other places. Is it your position that this is a transparent process with the Investment Canada Act?
Yes, I think the Investment Canada Act, as you know, is set up designed to look at net economic benefits, and there's also a national security provision to it, and I work very closely with the Minister of Public Safety when we look at national security provisions. With regards to Angbang and Cedar Tree, we did our due diligence, we did our homework, we made sure that it was in the overall net economic benefit for Canadians, and once we made that determination, we released that information to the public.
Right, and so what I would say is, if any member of Parliament, on this side, on that side, what have you, let's just say we wanted to kick the tires and make sure what you told us is exactly right. I'm sure it is. How would any of Liberal, Conservative, NDP members of Parliament have an opportunity to kick the tires and make sure that Angbang is not a state-owned enterprise? How would a member of Parliament do that?
So, as you know, Angbang is a privately owned global insurance company with over 30,000 employees. It is one of the leading comprehensive health insurance groups in China.
No, I understand that, but how would for myself?
Yeah, so there's legislation. We follow the legislation. We make sure that that process is properly followed, and we do the analysis. And more importantly, if you look at this particular transaction, Cedar Tree now has additional resources to provide better services and more resources to its clientele.
Okay, well, the answer is actually there is no opportunity for members of Parliament to kick the tires and make sure.
I think we're having that engagement, and I think we're doing that right now.
No,
sir.
we're not. What we're just doing is we're just talking. If you actually wanted to kick the tires and see, did Industry Canada officials travel to China to make the decision, to interview any of the affected parties?
We do our due diligence. Like I said, we make sure we follow the process.
Did anybody from Industry Canada go to China to meet with Angbang Insurance?
Why would we need to go to China?
Well, probably to meet with Angbang Insurance and do your due diligence and go through their corporate records and make sure that no money trails lead to the government. So I'm guessing by your answer.
So if I may on that, if I may, Chair.
I'm guessing the answer is nobody went.
No, so the idea is you don't have to physically go to the country to do an analysis of a company. They, first of all, come to us. They're making an investment in Canada, so naturally they would approach us. We would sit down and do our due diligence with them. You don't have to physically go to the country that's making the investment to do the due diligence.
I obviously understand that, but
so I just want to make it clear that we did engage Angbang.
Our time's up on that. Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Johari.
Mr. Chair, welcome, Minister. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask two questions. One of them naturally has to do with Innovation Agenda and Innovation Canada. The other one has to do with Skill Plan, two major pillars of the 2017 budget. So on the preamble side, in my riding, Richmond Hill, what I have started in collaboration with other levels of government and the Board of Trade, in Innovation Task Force. The objective of the Innovation Task Force in my community is to identify companies and young entrepreneurs, specifically in the area of artificial intelligence and robotics, to benefit from the Innovation Agenda and the Innovation Canada platform to be able to get the funding so they can get into the early stage as well as the late stage development. Can you shed some light on how, after the identification of these opportunities, they can go and get access to the funds under the Innovation Canada program?
So thank you for that question. As you know, you identified two areas where there's a lot of growth potential and expertise in Canada: artificial intelligence. We actually have the pioneers that really played a meaningful role in machine learning through Jeffrey Hinton in Toronto and through Joshua Bengio in Montreal. So this is an area where Canada actually has global expertise, and that's why we invested $125 million for a pan-Canadian artificial intelligence initiative in our budget as well. And you also mentioned robotics. We talked about the Canadian Space Agency, the Canada arm. We actually have a very strong reputation globally as well when it comes to robotics. And so advanced manufacturing is an area that we also highlighted in our budget as well. And so these are key themes that are reflected as a priority for the government, and I know that you're working very closely with companies in your constituency. You're meeting with them, aligning them with some of the key priorities in the budget and determining where those opportunities exist, and I want to commend you for that, particularly with your goal and ambition to scale them up. And that is a priority for our government. We're really good at starting up companies in Canada. We're a startup nation. It's a point of pride. But we do not want to be a nation where other countries or other companies come and take these businesses abroad. We want to see some of these companies, if they choose to stay in Canada, have the ability to really scale up and grow in Canada and be strong global brands. And that's why Innovation Canada exists. The idea is for you to identify those companies, and then they would engage. As I said, it's a single window, and they would have access to all innovation-related programs within government. So rather than going to multiple departments, rather than trying to figure out what to do, because remember, these companies are growing and scaling up. They're not trying to figure out government and trying to determine how to navigate through all the programs and opportunities that exist for them. So we're simplifying the process, we're coordinating the process, and we have a single window for them. And one of those key elements in that single window is the Strategic Investment Fund. And that's open to large corporations, as we talked about in the automotive sector, for example, in the past, but they're also open to companies that really have growth potential as well, and that's an area we're going to be focusing with them as well.
Thank you. Let's go to the scale plan, $2.7 billion over 6 years. And I have a lot of constituents coming to me and saying, kudos, government is doing a great job. How can I get access to those funds, and how can I go and get the new learning, new skill sets that's needed? How do I go about it? Can you shed some light on that one?
So as you know, Minister INDU is really the point person on deploying some of those programs, particularly for those mid-career workers that want to, leave their job or, reduce the number of hours of work so they can go back to school. So we're going to be providing them with grants, interest-free loans. So those are tools that we exist right now and that she'll be playing a leadership role in. One of the areas that we're really excited about is coding, as I mentioned before. So we want to respect provincial jurisdiction. We're going to put money forward through non-for-profit organizations to provide the supply for coding-related programs. So the demand does exist within our school systems, and they have the ability then to deal with those organizations and get those kinds of coding initiatives within their schools without, getting into that jurisdictional issue as well. And so we have different programs in place. These programs were announced in the budget, and we'll be rolling them out. And again, this information will be available on the website as well. And the objective is to be as friendly as possible to citizens and our constituents, so they can navigate through these programs in a timely manner and get the answer very quickly, and also get the money that they need so they can upgrade their skills.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to Mr. Albus. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Minister, Deputy Minister. Appreciate your presence here today. I'd just like to ask, Minister, about 40 or so days ago, the Prime Minister announced support to Ford of Canada to create and maintain almost 800 jobs for Canadian workers. Now, that was through the Innovation Fund. You've mentioned it in your comments today. Yesterday, Mike Morin, who is the spokesperson for Ford in the United States, had gone on the record to say that 600 Canadian jobs would be phased out. Is that frustrating to you, Minister, that you put in place programming and then only to find out that that is changed the next, within a very short period of time?
No, that's a really good question. And you mentioned Ford. Like I said, I started my career there at Ford, so I'm familiar with the company and the sector. Ford in generally and the automotive sector in general are seeing really incredible sales numbers. But it's a very cyclical industry. It's a very cyclical sector. They have ups and downs in terms of sales and products, in terms of what they're seeing here within the North American footprint and globally as well. So I think some of these transitions reflect the cyclical nature of the industry and also their investments that they're making globally as well. Clearly, we want to see more investment opportunities in Canada. And we'll work with the company to continue to see additional investment opportunities going forward.
So when you first made the innovation announcement, and obviously there was work that went in ahead of time, was there any discussion about this planned scaling back to 600 Canadian jobs?
No, our focus was to secure the footprint for the Essex engine plant. This was part of the labor discussions that took place with the automotive Big Three, and we wanted to be a meaningful partner along with the province of Ontario and with the unions. We did discuss in those conversations also a focus not only on the Essex engine plant jobs through Ford, for example, but the connectivity center here in Ottawa. As I mentioned, GM's hiring up to 1,000 engineers in Canada to build the car of the future. So we had twofold objective. One was to secure jobs and to secure the manufacturing footprint, because as you know, there's a multiplier of 7. And we also wanted to focus on the technological side, the connectivity center and the autonomous vehicle nature.
And I can understand that, but I'm talking about specifically investments in Fords and then also the declaration by Ford yesterday. So Minister, the challenge I have here is that obviously you say you want to be a meaningful partner with Ford. And you've also said that they did not make you aware that they were planning on closing down or phasing out 600 jobs while you're having those meaningful conversations.
So again, some of these jobs may be phased out. My understanding is these are not jobs in the front end on the shop. Some of these are administrative positions, but at the same time, they're making additional investments to focus on engineers and software. So I think there's a shift in the automotive sector of their footprint, and those are the conversations we have with them to say what kind of good quality jobs can we have, and at the same time, when we make these investment opportunities, we really focus on securing a mandate. So for Ford Motor Company,
but for you to sit down, Minister, with them, and to not be told we are planning on cutting back 600 jobs, and we're going to announce that within a month after this has gone forward. That to me is not a meaningful discussion. So did you not ask them, or did they just not tell you?
So again, as you rightfully mentioned earlier on in your remarks, this is not only Canada, this is Mexico, this is the U.S., so this is a North American and potentially even a global restructuring process that they're going through. When we sat down with them, we secured a strong footprint within Canada for Ford Motor Company, a strong baseline of jobs, and we also made sure that they continue to invest in the R&D side of it as well. That's what attributes to the 800 new jobs that were created.
But again, Minister, you're only looking at the positive side. I would just say as a parliamentarian, I would hope you'd be looking at both ends of it, protecting jobs and asking those critical questions, because you're giving taxpayer monies to a company, and taxpayers would want to know that interest is being maintained in a greater context than just a one-off deal.
Correct. And also you have to realize that this is the new norm, right, in terms of how we compete with Mexico and the U.S., is the government partnership is part of the equation. If government is not at the table in making these investments and being a partner, we will lose out these opportunities to Mexico and to southern parts of the U.S. And we saw that in the past decade or so. We saw a lot of these investments go down south to Mexico, and that's why we changed the profile to a grant model and started bringing these investments back to Canada.
But again, Minister...
Thank you very much. Sorry, time's up. Mr. Bayless, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Baines, for being here. As you know, in my riding and across Quebec and Ontario, we had a lot of flooding. And the federal government presently has the Disaster Finance Assistance Arrangement Program that helps people after flooding. That flows through the Quebec government. And our government has also announced the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, which is not just to come in and help after a disaster, but to help mitigate it. But the third leg of that is technology, specifically clean technologies, and that we can use to slow down these disasters and also use our know-how to better prevent them. Can you explain a bit how the Clean Technology Fund that you're putting in place can do that?
So I think you make a very valid point. When it comes to clean tech, obviously we want to achieve our climate change targets. We recognize that we have these ambitious targets to reduce our carbon footprint within Canada. It's part of our responsibility as Canadians and our global responsibilities to show leadership in that area. But mitigation is a key part as well. We're dealing with disasters, and we need to make sure that when we think of clean tech, that's an area where we can also play a leadership role as well. And so there are companies in Canada that are now more encouraged and more emboldened to look at mitigation technologies and solutions, and they feel assured that the government is there to work with them as a partner. As I mentioned, clean technology is a priority area for us. As I mentioned, we have $1.8 billion worth of financing available. And then above and beyond that, we actually have $400 million for the venture capital Catalyst initiative as well. So it's actually more than $1.8 billion. So I think the fact that companies realize that our commitment to climate change, to mitigation, and that we have the financial resources and programs in place, will really encourage companies in Canada around the mitigation area to develop their solutions to help us deal with some of these disasters.
Excellent. Innovation Canada.
Innovation Canada. I was very pleased to see that our government will be setting up one-stop shopping, so to speak, to further nature innovation and help businesses. Innovation Canada says this service will be available not only in English, but completely available in French as well.
Government itself being innovative in the way it's going to deliver that service to our entrepreneurs. We're not just asking them to be innovative, we're being innovative ourselves. Can you explain a bit how you see Innovation Canada making life easier for our entrepreneurs?
As I mentioned, I'm an accountant, but I also did my MBA as well, so I have a business background. I know you're a very successful business person and entrepreneur yourself, and you know that customer service is so important, that you know that we have to think that way, that these are our constituents, but we have to really afford them the best possible experience when they're dealing with government. And so we really are building in a customer service mentality into Innovation Canada. It's obviously coordinating programs, simplifying programs, but it's proactively dealing with businesses out there, understanding their needs better, and to be able to work with them in a coordinated fashion.
Be easy to do business with.
Absolutely. So it is easier to engage with government, easier to find programs that can help companies grow and scale up, easier for companies to find programs that meet their specific needs or concerns, and also making sure that they get a timely response. A lot of these companies, they have great ideas, and technology is changing very rapidly. As I mentioned, the scope and speed of technology, they don't have the luxury of waiting for months and months to determine if they are eligible for something or not. So that timely response is also very important for these companies as they make business decisions.
That's excellent. Last point, the Venture Capital Catalyst Fund.
Yes.
That's an important investment. We've heard a lot through our different studies about that need. How do you see that injection of funds from the federal government have an impact on our startups and our growing companies?
So as you know, the previous government introduced a Venture Capital Action Plan program. And we looked at that fund-to-fund model. We looked at what worked well, and we looked at where we can make improvements. So this program is really designed to, again, be deployed by Business Development Canada. We're saying, look, we've had record numbers over the last year in terms of venture capital investments in Canada. On a per capita basis, we're behind the US and actually Israel. So it's a point of pride. And so our view is how can we continue to maintain and strengthen that position? And again, we're looking at different models, fund to fund potentially. But the idea is, again, making sure that companies that want to scale and grow up in Canada have access to financing. We focused a lot in our budget on talent and skills and people, which is, I think, the most important ingredient. But the next key area that companies have identified is financing. And so we want to make sure that this deals with some of those gaps that exist within that innovation ecosystem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. And for the last 2-minute question, Mr. Massey.
Chair, and I want to switch to an industry that probably is looked over quite a bit, I think, especially the punch that we get out of it, and that's the video game industry, software, entertainment industry. It's a third of the North American economy, value-added, high-tech. It creates a lot of innovation, even to the healthcare sector as well, too.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder whether what exactly can we look forward to this year? And is there thoughts, though, of expanding the industry? And, I've advocated for a national auto strategy. We won't get into that debate right now. But is there thoughts about this industry? Because when you look at there's a lot of similarities looking in terms of the growth of it, and especially now when we have a low Canadian dollar to our American counterparts, in the industry to attract international employment. So when they hire, say, for example, one of the software designers for, a multi-million-dollar project or even smaller ones, but they need some, almost like movie directors that come in and they create other jobs domestically. There'll be some problems in the United States with that. I just see a sense of opportunity for places like Windsor and others where we can offer a competitive advantage for in terms of a company's low cost of doing business from property standpoints. And we look at the emergence of Detroit, for example, but there's other cities that are, there's mid-range cities that often get forgotten, like Saskatoon, Halifax, and Regina, and Guelph, for example, where they're outside of areas where they can offer a good advantage. At any rate, I'd like to hear your thoughts about that industry. You know, I would love to see something like similar to like a film tax credit or something specific to that. But at any rate, what can we look forward to that industry before we may perhaps lose it to other policies in the United States?
No, you're right. I think, I mean, when it comes to the Windsor experience, it does have a low unemployment rate now at 4.8%, I think, and that is that's headed in the right direction, and that's a point of pride. And we have a discounted dollar, so that's another advantage. Like you said, it's a low-cost jurisdiction. I'm working very closely with Minister Joly. I was at the Consumer Electronics Show where we looked at AR and VR and the potential it has in Canada. And I think you're absolutely right. Areas like Windsor can definitely play a role in developing those skill sets and clusters. It's close to the border. And it's an area where there's a lot of growth potential going forward. So this is an area that I think will benefit from being exposed to the Strategic Investment Fund. So if we have large companies that want to come here, because as you said, skills is a priority for our government. And the fact that we actually have the skill force, the labor force, we have a global skills strategy. We can get people from abroad if we need to have specialized skills to complement strong Canadian talent. So we have all the right ingredients. And we have a discounted dollar, we have a low-cost jurisdiction, we have a reasonable footprint, and it must confess it's decent in Windsor, but it can be better. Like there's other jurisdictions that really stepped up, and I think this is an area that I've looked at extensively, especially through AR and VR, where there's a lot of growth that's happening, and I'll be working very closely with Minister Joly to bring those investments to Canada.
Thank you very much. On that note, I want to thank Minister Bains for attending today. We need to still vote, so please stay down. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to the next opportunity to speak with members of the committee.
Always a pleasure. Thank you. Okay, so what we have left is we have to vote on the mains. We obviously have quite a few here. So what I'm going to ask for is a unanimous consent to deal with all the votes in one motion.
I want them all red.
No. Okay, so if I have unanimous consent, shall all votes under the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, Canadian North Economic Development Agency, Canadian Space Agency, Canadian Tourism Commission, Copyright Board, Department of Industry, Department of Western Economic Diversification, Economic Development Agency of Canada for the regions of Quebec, Federal Economic Development Agency for Southern Ontario, National Research Council of Canada, Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, Social Science and Humanities Research Council, Standards Council of Canada, and Statistics Canada of Maine's 2017-2018.
Minus the amounts.
Okay, so the committee will now dispose of the main estimates for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2018, minus the interim estimates the House agreed to on March 21st, 2017. Shall the chair, shall, right, here.
Shall all votes carry?
Yeah, shall all votes carry?
On division.
On division, okay. Shall the chair report these votes to the House? Shall we end the session then? Thank you very much. We are. Thank you very much, by the way, for your promptness to our time, and I thought that went really well. Thank you very much.
Good job.
Yay!